Hi, my name is Elizabeth Hoffman.
I'm Whitney Parker.
And I'm Tori Livey.
And we are going to be introducing our Stack the States lesson. That is the name of the application we're going to use. This lesson is for our 5th graders. Subject is social studies pertaining to the states. And we could not find an exact Common Core state standard for this lesson because there's really not any social studies standards made up yet for grades K through 5. So we took one of the literacy standards and kind of modified it to go along with our lesson. So we came up with this standard: drawing on information from prior and learned knowledge from previous lessons, because we're going to be using this app primarily as a review at the end of the unit, to demonstrate the ability to locate an answer to a question quickly or solve a problem efficiently. So that kind of coincides with the app that we use, because the students will need to quickly pull from their memory and say, oh yeah, this is the location of the state, or this is the state capital. So moving on, our key goal for our 5th graders is that the students will use their prior knowledge, so that's what they have learned throughout the unit, to practice what they know in relation to the U.S., so they're only going to be focusing on the states. In particular, students will determine, like we said before, the state capitals, where the states are located, the shapes of the states, flags of the states, and national landmarks of the states. And those are all the questions that the app will go over. And an essential question is, how knowledgeable are our 5th graders about the United States? So we're going to give a quick example and run through the application.
Alright, so absolutely easy to use. Basically, a question just comes up on the top, gives you 4 options to choose from. And so we'll just go from that one right now. So the AMO is a landmark of which state?
Texas.
Okay,
So
yeah.
then you come up, someone from the group would come up and they'd pick Texas. And then you move it around. I don't know how.
Yeah, so you can drag it anywhere on the screen and you want to drop it down. So you want to stack up the states so it passes the finish line. You can twist it and turn it and do whatever you want with it.
So then you drag it and you want to drop it so that it crosses that finish line.
That was cool.
I thought I was going to
Texas is always the hardest, so always tips all the other ones over, so.
And then when you cross the line, it gives you like how well you did throughout to get to the crossing of the line, and like percent correct, and it just kind of keeps track of that.
What we thought was cool about how the states drop and like what size they are, it actually corresponds to how the states are. So like Texas is obviously bigger than Rhode Island, so students can get a visual of that. If you go to My States, it puts them where they should be. You take a look at it, you can see that. So our first one is the little teeny one over there. So then we'll show you what happens if you get it wrong.
Okay, and then it asks you like what flag this is, which easy.
So let's say I hit Texas and I got it wrong. Then it shows you what the right answer is.
And it says, I am South Dakota, this is my flag.
Yeah, and it just does about flags, landmarks, what state it is. So it asks the students multiple questions so they can get an understanding about it.
It's like border with Canada.
We have a
We
lot
have
of
the- yeah,
those.
we have a lot.
So we had it so students would get in pairs of 2 and the teacher can either determine those groups or if the class can do it themselves. So it's kind of like each group would come up one at a time and they would read a question, see if they can answer it. And then the groups that aren't coming up here, they have whiteboards and they can write down what they think is the answer. So it gets them still interacting with this and not just sitting there like, this game is boring, like I don't want to do this.
And that way you can kind of evaluate how well the class is doing. It's kind of an assessment.
Yeah, you don't have to have students like hold up the whiteboards unless they're competitive and want to do that, because some students are more shy and don't want to hold up their answer in case they're wrong.
We planned on giving them 2 worksheets that we have in here, and one just has them alphabetically listing them out, and like if they know it or not, so they want to fill those out. And then then the other one has you placing where the state is on the map, and then you can also write their capitals, which we would allow them to use for this application, kind of just to go back to their prior knowledge.
So in case they do need extra help and are able to like just think of where they should be located, then they can have worksheets to help them.
Are there any questions on the lesson plan? And like depending how competitive your class is or how much time you have, I mean you could play this game for hours. We had a really good time with this game. I think that another way you could modify this application is if students want to do it individually, so they could use headphones and kind of work on it in the back of the room instead of being a part of the whole group.
And the teacher can see how well they're doing by how many states they have filled into the whole US at the end.
Yeah, and another thing that we kind of decided with like the trend of the technology kind of failing, that sometimes seems to happen like more than it should. So that's kind of why we incorporated the use of the erase boards for each individual student, which a lot of classrooms do provide. Because that way, if you did have something like this where it wasn't really conducive for teaching your lesson, you could just have a pre-made out overhead, or you could even write the questions on the board so that way the students could still participate in the game without the technology. And then just for a closing statement, this app is really to help students quiz themselves and their knowledge on the state. So, for example, you wouldn't want to use this lesson if they didn't have any prior knowledge to the state capitals, the location of the states, the shapes of the states, the national landmarks, because it really wouldn't be any use to you to kind of like gauge where they are in their knowledge of the states. You could use it as like a pre-test, I guess, because then you could kind of track and say, okay, well, everybody knows where the states are, but nobody knows the national landmarks. And then you could spend the majority of your lessons teaching just the landmarks.
You can like play throughout the unit to see like how well they're like understand the information without grasping about it. And you can even use some of the questions on the test, so that's something familiar for them. Not just random questions.
Yeah. Are there any questions on our 5th grade social studies lesson, Stack the States? Okay, thank you.